She sat alone at 3 a.m. on a blind date, but what happens next will haunt you forever. The clock ticked mercilessly as Rebecca sat alone at the candlelit table. The flicker of the flame danced with shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the night. Her heart raced as she glanced around. The restaurant was eerily quiet, save for the distant clinking of glasses. Each moment felt stretched, suffocating her with anticipation. Where was he? Her blind date, a mystery wrapped in digital promises, was now an hour late. The wait was beginning to feel like an eternity. Just then, a chill breeze swept through the open door, sending a shiver down her spine. The energy shifted, prickling the hairs on her arms. It felt like the walls were closing in, their painted smiles mocking her isolation. The small round table, once a beacon of hope, now felt like an albatross around her neck. Beside her, a forgotten glass of red wine grew warm, staining the white tablecloth with thoughts of the night ahead. At that moment, a figure appeared in the doorway. He was tall, shadowed by the dim light, his face obscured. The sudden silence deepened as everyone turned to stare. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like a wave of unease. What was so captivating about him that they all watched? Rebecca leaned forward, her pulse racing. The stranger's eyes locked onto hers, deep and dark, and she felt a combination of fear and inexplicable allure wash over her. What happened next was a series of rapid flashes. Before she could take a breath, he approached. He offered a crooked smile that couldn't hide his nervousness, seeming almost otherworldly. Had he come to save her from her sinking dread, or was he the architect of something far more sinister? The air crackled around them, thick with anticipation. Something was amiss, tinged with the unusual. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The patrons shifted uneasily, eyes darting. Rebecca's heart raced with the sudden fear of the unknown. Who was this man? Why did he seem so familiar, yet so distant? She felt an unseen force tug at her, almost pulling her toward him. But her instincts warned her. Every part of her screamed to run as the storm rolled in, chilling the air within the restaurant. She opened her mouth to speak. Would she ask the question that could unravel everything? But before she could find the words, he reached out, his warm hand brushing against hers. Time froze and the world narrowed down to that electric touch. Was it comfort or danger? The question spiraled wildly, and she realized at that moment, she was trapped both in the warm haze of attraction and the icy clutch of fear. What would she uncover next? Who was he really? And what had she gotten herself into? The moment his hand touched hers, an electric current tingled through her body. She felt dizzy, the world around her blurring as if it was melting. The warm light of the candles flickered erratically, and shadows danced wildly on the walls. Then, the spell shattered when she finally met his gaze fully. Those dark depths held secrets that felt alive, creeping in and out of her consciousness. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, he murmured, his voice smooth but laced with an unnerving edge. I had some things to take care of. Rebecca's throat tightened. It felt wrong to trust him, yet she was drawn to the intensity that rolled off him. Things? What things? She barely managed to ask, nervous energy coiling in the pit of her stomach. He chuckled softly, but it lacked warmth. A shadow of something darker passed over his face, and she hesitated. The restaurant, once a backdrop of romantic possibilities, now transformed into a maze of uncertainty. The other patrons were no longer mere spectators, but all suddenly felt like a captive audience to some unseen performance, their eyes glued to her as if they sensed something was amiss. Let us not talk about me, he said, leaning closer. The smell of smoke and rain was overpowering, mingling with a hint of danger that sent chills down her spine. Tell me about yourself. His sudden interest felt out of place, disarming. Rebecca opened her mouth to speak, but her words faltered. Instead, she searched for the courage to push back. No, I think it's important that I know who I'm dining with, she replied, attempting to sound assertive despite the quiver in her voice. What's your name? Names are just labels, he said cryptically, withdrawing slightly, yet his gaze never broke from hers. Let us focus on what really matters. He slid a small object from his pocket and placed it gently on the table, a silver locket, illuminated by the dim light. What is that? She asked, panic bubbling to the surface as her fingers flexed involuntarily toward it. Something you should see, he replied, his voice dropping to a whisper, but only if you're certain you wish to know. Rebecca's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The air grew heavy, electric with uncertainty. She glanced around the room. Her instincts screamed that somehow this moment was linking to something larger than her blind date, the feeling that the other diners were waiting for something, anticipating a climax she couldn't perceive against her better judgment. She reached out and picked up the locket. The cold metal was surprising against her skin, making her shiver involuntarily. Shaking, she opened it, and her breath caught in her throat. Inside, a photograph stared back at her, a young girl with wide, frightened eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. The world around her slipped away as everything else faded into a blur. Wait, who is she? Rebecca managed, an urgent whisper that was almost lost in the low hum of the restaurant. The stranger leaned back, a small, knowing smile creeping onto his lips. You really should look closer, he said mockingly, the threat in his tone settling into her bones. A loud crash echoed as a lightning bolt struck outside, illuminating his face momentarily. It wasn't just the darkness she feared now. It was the unknown, the web of connections just waiting to ensnare her. Look closer, she repeated, incredulity mixing with dread. What did that mean? Just then the dining room plunged into darkness, plunging her into an abyss she never asked to enter. Shouts erupted, and a flurry of movements rushed past her ears. A sudden pulse of fear gripped her as she clutched the locket, the only tangible object in this spiraling storm. And in that moment of chaos, she knew this was only the beginning. What had she gotten herself into? Where would this spiral lead her next? As a voice echoed through the thunder, shattering her thoughts, she heard a chilling command. Don't leave just yet, Rebecca. The darkness loomed larger as she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, and she wondered if she would ever escape the tides that had pulled her under. What would she discover when the lights returned? The darkness was suffocating, cloying like an old damp blanket wrapped too tight. Rebecca squeezed the locket, its cold metal biting into her palm, grounding her in a moment that felt surreal. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, louder than the chaos swirling around her. Someone help! A woman's voice shrieked nearby. Panic rippled through the room. Chairs scraped against the floor, and the heavy scent of fear mingled with the bitterness of spilled drinks. In the pitch black, time warped. Every second stretched, thick with anxiety. Rebecca! The stranger's voice cut through the confusion, low and urgent. Stay where you are. Stay? She thought, a surge of defiance washing over her. Why would I do that? She stood, adrenaline propelling her forward despite the terror clasping her throat. She was not going to be a pawn in this dark game. Wait! He tried to grab her arm, but she evaded his reach, moving blindly through the restaurant. Each step felt like a plunge into ice-cold water, her pulse racing as she dodged unseen bodies. The sounds around her, the shouting, the clinking of glasses, the heavy thuds of footsteps twisted into a jarring symphony of fear. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, bathing the restaurant in harsh, blinding brightness. Gasps erupted, and Rebecca blinked rapidly to adjust her vision. The once cozy dining room morphed into a disorienting scene of panic. Tables were overturned, glasses shattered on the floor, and amidst the chaos, she spotted the stranger, his deep-set eyes fixed on her, frustration visible in his rigid posture. Why did you run? He demanded, his voice even, but she felt the undertone of irritation. Because she started, but the words died in her throat. Reality settled like dust on her shoulders. The girl in the locket, those haunting eyes, they lingered like a specter. Before she could voice her thoughts, the restaurant door flung open. A figure burst inside, drenched and breathless. It was a man, wild-eyed, a stranger in a soaked trench coat. They're coming! He yelled. We don't have much time. A low murmur of confusion rippled through the remaining diners, some frozen in their seats, while others began to flee toward the exits. Panic ignited anew. Rebecca's heart raced. Who was they? What had she stumbled into? Who are you? She shouted, her voice fighting to rise above the clamor. I wish I had time to explain. The man panted, glancing nervously at the windows shimmering with rain. But you need to trust me. They're hunting for you. Me? Rebecca felt the weight of the world shift. The locket burned against her skin, and she clutched it tighter as dread coiled in her stomach. Why? You'll find out soon enough, but please, he said, his gaze darting around the room, you must come with me now. Before she could respond, the stranger reached for her again. Don't go with him, he commanded. The intensity of his grip demanded her attention, and that moment, two realities collided. The urgency of escape clawed at her nerves, and the allure of the mystery wrapped around her like a serpent. Each choice twisted tighter, promising revelation or danger. The tension hung heavy, charged with electric potential. Heart racing, she glanced between them, a stranger filled with secrets and another cloaked in desperation. Rebecca, the stranger murmured, remember, the truth isn't always what it seems. What did that mean? And why did it feel like the ground beneath her was shifting into something darker? Come on. The drenched man urged desperately. We don't have time. With every passing second, decisions cascaded around her, and the weight of her next action gripped her tighter than any fear. She was already in too deep, but which path would pull her deeper into the abyss? As their eyes burned into her, she felt the threads of fate unraveling. Time was running out and the night was just beginning. What was the truth she had yet to discover? Rebecca's heart thundered as she stood frozen, caught between two frantic souls. The drenched man's pleading gaze bore into her, urging her to trust him. Meanwhile, the stranger radiated an intensity that was unsettling. What choice could she make in this sea of confusion? Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass broke the air. The warm, dim lights flickered in and out again, drowning in the screams that began to surge once more. We don't know how long we have, the drenched man insisted. They're right outside. Before she could process the urgency, a deep thud resonated from the entrance. It was too deliberate to be just a gust of wind or careless passerby. Instinct kicked in, igniting the fight-or-flight response deep within her. Let us go. She turned toward the drenched man, her voice barely more than a whisper yet heavy with resolve. She didn't even know this man. Yet the chaos around them thickened like fog. The taste of fear was metal on her tongue. No. The stranger stepped in front of her, arms crossed, blocking her path. His demeanor shifted. Something was different in him, an edge of desperation sharpening his features. You don't understand. P.S. Dangerous. Dangerous or not, I need to get out of here. She felt the locket grow warmer against her skin, and she instinctively tucked it deep into her pocket, as if shielding it from this madness. The drenched man took a step forward, a gesture of surrender and patience. Look, I promise I'll explain everything. But you need to trust me. Right now they want you. And before he could finish his sentence, the door crashed open. The chill of the storm outside rushed in, pulling the already panicked atmosphere into an even wilder temper. A group of figures loomed at the entrance, their features obscured by shadows. With glinting eyes and predatory poise, they prowled in as if they'd been hunting, searching, waiting for a moment like this. The restaurant's patrons scattered like startled birds, some screaming, others stumbling over chairs. One woman stumbled past Rebecca, her face pallid and eyes wide with terror. They're here, she gasped, running for the exit, pushing past anyone in her way. Now, the drenched man shouted, grabbing Rebecca's wrist. She didn't question what to do next. Her instincts kicked in. She yanked her arm free and bolted for the back entrance, colliding with confusion as the stranger followed closely behind. The rear exit led into a rain-soaked alley. The storm pelted against the pavement, soaking her in seconds. But it was the shouts behind her that fueled her pace. This way, he shouted, guiding her deeper into the shadows. The alley seemed endless, fragments of chaos behind them blending into one horrifying din. She turned to see the stranger still hot on their heels. You'll regret this, he yelled over the howling wind. But no. This escape was her only chance. A fleeting memory whispered in her mind, a fleeting memory tied to the locket she clutched. The girl's haunting image floated back, a connection she couldn't ignore. Turning to say something, she froze. The drenched man had stopped, eyes wide, staring at something behind her. She turned just in time to see the figures emerging from the opening of the alley, pale faces lit by flickering streetlights, a menacing grin breaking the darkness. "Run!" the stranger screamed, pulling her back as the rain shielded their escape, but she hesitated. Her heart raced as the reality of them loomed large. Were they truly after her? Or was it all a ruse? As the dread coiled tighter, Rebecca felt the locket burn against her skin once more. If only she knew what it truly meant. Every choice spiraled back to that single truth. Trust was slipping away like sand through her fingers, and the past was monsters she could no longer ignore. In that moment, she realized she knew only one thing. She couldn't be caught. Not now. Not when everything was unraveling. But then another thought struck her. What if the truth behind the locket held the key to her survival? As they dashed around the next corner breathless, the shadows seemed to whisper secrets. Would she uncover the connection before it was too late? Or was this the beginning of a chase that would consume her entirely? She needed answers. The storm intensified around them as the uncertainty deepened, reshaping into something darker. What truth could possibly lie in the depths of her past? And who really was her enemy? They sprinted down the slick alley, the rain drenching them as if the heavens themselves were trying to wash away their fears. The drenched man ran close beside her, his face taut with worry. "They won, stop!" he yelled, the echoes of their footsteps swallowed by the downpour. Rebecca felt every thud against the ground reverberate through her chest, a heavy reminder of the danger clawing at their heels. "Where are we going?" she gasped, eyes darting for shadows, searching for any sign of pursuers. "To safety." He pointed ahead, a flicker of resolve lighting up his dark eyes. "I know a place." But doubt settled heavily in her gut. How could she trust him? Each step felt like a leap into unknown darkness. The doubt had a tight grip on her, growing tighter with each frantic moment. A piercing scream shattered the air. It came from somewhere behind them, full of terror and despair. When she glanced back, the figures emerged from the shadows like phantoms, sinister intentions glimmering in their eyes. They were gaining on them, their movements swift and predatory. "Faster!" the drenched man urged, as they rounded another corner into a narrower passage. Broken bottles crunched beneath their feet, sending shards flying. The sound echoed like a death knell in the empty space around them, and Rebecca's heart raced faster. She felt the weight of the locket against her chest, a constant reminder of her connection to this madness. Who was she really? Why were they after her? She clenched it tighter, attempting to summon its power, its secrets. Fading memories danced just out of reach, taunting her. The drenched man glanced at her, the thunder crashing overhead like ominous drums. "Are you with me?" His voice cracked through her spiraling thoughts. The urgency in his tone broke the haze of fear enveloping her. "Yes," she managed to shout back, determination fueling her legs. She plunged deeper into the darkness, her instincts screaming for her to escape. She wasn't going to let whatever hunted her catch her. But then a ruckus erupted behind them. Laughing. Sickening manic laughter echoed through the alley. The figures didn't just chase them. They enjoyed the hunt. It sent a chill down her spine. The hairs on her arms stood on end as dread coiled within her. They were toying with them. "Look out!" The drenched man lunged, yanking her away from the incoming threat. A dark figure emerged, catching her off guard. It moved with a fluidity that was almost mesmerizing, but the hunger in its gaze was chilling. Rebecca stumbled, catching herself against the damp wall, her breath quickening in panic. She could see the glint of a knife in the figure's hand. The rain pattered heavily around them, a brutal backdrop to their impending doom. "Keep moving!" he yelled, urgency propelling them forward. They rounded yet another corner, the alley opening up into a small courtyard. The drenched man seized her wrist again, pulling her along. But then voices from behind them turned sharply into the sounds of a confrontation. Rebecca dared a glance back. The figures converged on the corner, their shadows stretching longer against the brick. She couldn't see their faces, but an inescapable dread seeped into her bones. "They know we're here," the drenched man's voice cracked under the weight of fear. Panic gripped Rebecca, the shadows growing larger, more monstrous, and that moment, a realization slammed into her. What if the locket wasn't just a token of her past, but a beacon, a guide that could lead her to safety, or someone she had lost long ago. As the tension thickened like boiling water about to explode, the drenched man turned to her, desperation etched across his features. "You have to tell me what you know, Rebecca. It's the only way." Her heart hammered against her ribs. Did she even know enough? Who could she confide in when shadows lurked behind every corner? Time was slipping, and the figures were drawing nearer. Another scream shattered the night, now transformed by chaos. She felt the locket's pulsating warmth again. What truth was hiding in her memory? And could illuminating it help her find a path through the darkness closing in on them? Just ahead, the way forward seemed to ripple with uncertainty. The storm howled, and the figures laughed, a sound that promised nightmares yet unseen. Would she find the courage to unveil her past before it claimed a future? The courtyard loomed before them, an open expanse drenched in shadows and rain. Puddles glinted like dark mirrors, reflecting the distant flashes of lightning. The drenched man hesitated, scanning their surroundings, urgency twisting his features. "This way." He tugged her toward the far end, where an ancient door clung to the crumbling wall like a drowning man to debris. Rebecca stumbled, her heart racing as a frantic need for survival overtook her thoughts. She cast one last glance behind them, and the sight was chilling. The figures were almost upon them, breaking out of the alley like wolves unleashed. Their laughter cut through the air, taunting and hollow, each cackle a jagged shard wedging deeper into her fear. "Go!" he shouted, slamming against the door, the wood creaking in protest. He twisted the rusty handle, and to her surprise the door swung open. The darkness inside beckoned like a gaping mouth, but she felt a pulse of something familiar as she crossed the threshold. They stumbled into the dimness, drenched from head to toe. Shadows danced around them as lightning illuminated the grime-streaked walls. The cold air was thick and heavy, swirling with the scent of damp earth and decay. Rebecca's mind raced. Where were they? Why did it feel oddly comforting? "Stay close," he whispered, pulling her deeper into the building's maw. They moved through a narrow hall, the walls lined with peeling paint and remnants of past lives. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, amplifying the silence that swallowed them. She could almost hear whispers, muffled voices fluttering on the edge of her senses. "What is this place?" she whispered back, her voice trembling in the stillness. "A safe house," he replied, glancing back nervously. "For people like us." Rebecca's heart skipped at the implication. People like us? She struggled to process the implications. He had said he knew her name. What did he mean by that? But another scream ripped through the night, shattering her thoughts like glass. The figures were outside. They had followed them into the darkness. She felt her breath hitch in her throat, the panic tightening like a vice. "What do we do?" she gasped, clenching the locket tighter, its surface warm against her palm. "Look for something, anything," he urged, scanning the dark corners. "We need a weapon or a way out." Before she could respond, shadows flooded through the doorway behind them, and the gleam of blades reflected the flicker of lightning. "You think you can hide?" one of the figures sneered, his voice sending a shiver racing down Rebecca's spine. The drenched man pulled her against a wall just as two men burst into the building. Their faces were twisted with malice, eyes hungry for blood. She could see their breath fogging the air, an ominous reminder of how alive they were. The man beside her held his ground, his expression resolute, but fear was a palpable force. "I won't let them take you," he said fiercely, as if it were a vow. Rebecca felt a surge within her, a flicker of defiance rising like fire in her chest. What was this force? Was it the locket? But before she could explore the feeling, one of the figures lunged towards them, knife gleaming like a comet cutting through the dark. "Run!" he shouted, pushing her away from the impending danger. Time slowed as Rebecca stumbled backward, her heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. She was torn between instinct and trust. Should she flee or fight? The past reached for her through the locket, and in that moment, intuition sparked a thought: perhaps the locket was more than a mere trinket. As chaos erupted, she spun around, ready to confront the shadows that had haunted her, begging to be unleashed. Would she embrace the truth or succumb to her fear? The doorway now felt like a threshold between two worlds, one of darkness and one of light. She felt the warmth of the locket grow fierce against her skin, igniting her spirit, But then the laughter came again, chilling and mocking, shoving her even further into the heart of the storm. What awaited her on the other side of that decision? Would she choose to unlock the secrets of her past, or let the encroaching darkness sweep her away? As a figure advanced toward her, rage igniting her blood, a deafening silence fell, and then the world spun. The world spun back into focus, but it was darker than before. Rebecca blinked, feeling the locket's warmth push against her chest as if it had a heartbeat of its own. The laughter faded, swallowed whole by the swell of silence. Fear and uncertainty battled for dominance as she grasped the locket tighter, a lifeline amid turmoil. She turned to face the looming figure, her breath hitching in her throat. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening her senses, but the dread hung heavy in the air. The man beside her lunged, pushing her further back against the rough wall. Just as the knife-wielding figure lunged again, there was no choice left. "Fight!" she urged, her own voice surprising her with a surge of boldness. She felt the locket pulse, its energy igniting a flicker of strength she'd never known before. Words echoed in her mind, a whisper of forgotten promises and untapped potential. Was it a memory? Or a warning? They collided, the force shoving both men back into the darkness. Time fractured again. Every heartbeat resounded in her ears like a drum of war. She watched as if suspended, every detail crystalline, the glint of blades, the flicker of anger in the attacker's eyes, the determination etched on her companion's face. "Pick it up," he yelled, yanking her back to reality. She blinked, noticing the glint of something metallic amidst the debris at her feet, a broken pipe, sharp and jagged. Heart racing, she dove for it, fingers closing around the cold metal just as the first man daring to regain his footing charged again. With a surprising resolve, she swung the pipe, connecting with a sickening thud against his knee. His howl of pain filled the air, followed by a crack of thunder outside, merging with the storm's fury. The second man hesitated, shock crossing his features before fury took over. Before he could strike out, her companion darted forward. They collided with a fierce shout, grappling as Rebecca stumbled to recover, the adrenaline coursing through her making her nearly invincible. She stood her ground, clutching the pipe as her breath quickened. "How did you get that strength?" he grunted through clenched teeth, wrestling his opponent. "I don't know," she shouted back, shaking with confusion. "But we need to get out of here." Before their words could carry any weight, the remaining figure broke free, lunging towards her. The air crackled with animosity, the taste of terror lingering on her tongue. She swung, her muscles burning, but he ducked, getting too close. In that instant they locked eyes, and she saw it malice mixed with desperation. He lunged again, but Rebecca held her ground. A sudden spark ignited in her chest, a warmth radiating outward, consuming her fear and transforming it into pure defiance. "Enough!" she screamed, the locket glowing in response, casting a feeble light that surged into a visceral wave of power. For a heartbeat, she felt time pause, her essence expanding in command, more than just a frightened girl. The light pulsed again, sending energy rippling outward, crashing over the attacker like a tangible force. And then everything shifted. The air around them twisted, abruptly morphing with a hiss, merging shadows and light. Rebecca felt the very air shift as if she struck a direct chord against the darkness. The man before her faltered, expression shifting from aggression to horror. "What are you?" he choked out, backing away, fear now etching deep lines across his face. "Who's been watching me?" she insisted, emboldened as strength surging through her veins ignited an instinct deeper within. "You thought you could take me?" The echoes of her words hung in the air, sealing the fate of that encounter, but it felt far from over. She heard a low rumble, not from the storm but something far more menacing. A shift, a movement in the shadows surrounding them. Rebecca and her companion turned in unison, hearts pounding. The sound was getting closer. What had they awakened? "Stay ready," he whispered, preparing for whatever emerged from the dark corners, as the storm outside began to pale in comparison to the brewing chaos within. What awaited them in the depths of this hallowed refuge? Would the storm reveal the truth they sought, or would it unleash something far worse? The shadows twisted like tendrils reaching out to snatch them into the void. Rebecca strained her ears, the growl echoing within the darkened space, sending chills down her spine. Every instinct screamed to run, yet she stood frozen, Clutching the pipe like a guardian weapon, her companion's face was a mask of determination, shifting as he braced himself beside her, muscles coiled, ready for whatever lurked just beyond their line of sight. "Whatever it is, it's not done with us," he said, eyes darting. Scanning the gloom, thunder cracked again overhead, shaking the very ground beneath her feet. The low rumble increased and a distinct shape began to form within the darkness, a silhouette growing larger, more defined. "Stay together," she whispered, feeling an undeniable sense of camaraderie threading between them. The figure emerged from the shadows. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Wrapped in a cloak that flickered like the flames of a dying fire, the face remained obscured, mask-like and haunting. Only two glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness, locking onto Rebecca as if it knew her soul. "Who dares summon my wrath?" it hissed, the voice smooth yet gravelly, sending shivers down her spine. "Tell me, girl, what power do you wield?" I don't know," Rebecca stammered, her pulse racing. The locket felt like it was alive against her chest, thrumming with energy. "Just leave us alone." "Oh, but you have summoned much more than I," it said, stepping closer, sending waves of fear coursing through her. "You stand on the brink of the unknown, yet you are unaware of its depths." Beneath the cloak, shadows danced, flickering hints of the horrors contained within. She and her companion exchanged glances, and she felt a mix of fear and fury. "We won't let you hurt anyone," she shouted, voice shaky yet fierce. The figure tilted its head, seemingly amused. "You think you and your fragile strength can challenge me? You have no idea who you are dealing with." Before she could think, Rebecca swung the metal pipe again, fueled by instinct. It struck the figure's side with a clang, but it didn't seem to falter. Instead, it barely flinched, its cloak absorbing the blow like water. "Foolish girl," it sneered, lunging forward with such speed, she barely had time to register. Every ounce of her bravery ignited as she prepared once more, but a smoky black hand shot out, grasping her wrist tightly, twisting and freezing her in place. "Release her!" her companion roared, launching himself at the creature, but a sudden wall of shadows flared to life, throwing him back with a force that knocked him to his knees. Panic flooded her. The darkness entwined with her, suffocating, and the locket flared hotter, its warmth a stark contrast to the creeping cold wrapping around her heart. "I won't let you take me," she screamed, the words breaking free in a surge of primal emotion. There was a flash, blinding and raw. Light exploded from the locket, casting the shadowy figure back, releasing its grip on her wrist. Rebecca felt every ounce of terror replaced with a fierce surge of power. The creature snarled in displeasure, casting glances over its shoulder. "You think this is over? The game has just begun, child." And with that, it dissolved back into shadows, vanishing amongst the gloom, leaving a peculiar silence in its wake. Rebecca fell to her knees, panting, struggling to understand what had just happened. "Did you see that?" she panted to her companion, whose eyes were wide with astonishment. "It didn't just leave, it threatened us." Fear gripped her heart. "What does that mean?" Suddenly, a distant rumble shook the ground again, a voice echoing softly through the spirals of darkness. "Finish what you started or face the darkness within." Rebecca shivered, uncertainty clouding her thoughts. This was far from over. Was there a way to uncover the truth behind the locket? Or had they just stepped into an abyss they could never escape? Rebecca gasped for breath, her heart pounding in her chest like a wild drum. The darkness felt heavier now, thick with the weight of the shadows that had just fled. She could still feel the ghost of that icy grip around her wrist, lingering like a nightmare she couldn't shake off. "You okay?" her companion asked, kneeling beside her, concern etched across his features. "I don't know," she replied, shaking her head, trying to pull herself together. "What just happened?" It was trying to take me." He inhaled sharply, staring into the void where the figure had been moments before. "We need to get out of here now. Whatever that was, it's not gone for good." She nodded but couldn't move. The locket pressed against her, radiating warmth that felt strangely comforting. "But we can't just leave." The voice had said to finish what we started. He sighed, frustration clouding his eyes. "How could we possibly finish it? We barely survived that encounter." A rumble of thunder cut through the air again. This time it felt more aggressive, almost like a warning. A flicker of shadows danced along the edges of their surroundings, and Rebecca felt dread coiling in her stomach. "Maybe it's a riddle or something," she said, her thoughts racing. What if we figure out what it wants? Maybe then it'll leave us alone. Her companion stood abruptly. Leave it alone? Rebecca, it doesn't work that way. It was powerful and we're just us. We need to run first, figure this out later. But deep down Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that this was about her. The locket had responded to her fear, and whatever that creature was, it was interested in her. She needed to confront it. I have to at least try. Before he could argue further, a tingling sensation coursed through her fingers as she grasped the locket tightly. Suddenly images flashed in her mind, faces screaming, shadows twisting, and a burning tree. With every heartbeat, she saw pieces of a puzzle falling into place, leading her towards something lost but vital. Rebecca, what are you? Her companion began, but she cut him off. I can feel something. There's a way, I just need to follow it. As she spoke, tendrils of darkness started creeping back towards them from the periphery, swirling like smoke encroaching on a flame. The faint outline of the creature materialized once more, its glowing eyes fixing on her with twisted hunger. You've only just begun to touch the surface of your potential, it hissed, voice echoing with a mixture of malice and seduction. You can be so much more if you embrace the darkness. No, she shouted, instinctively swinging the pipe again. But this time it cut through the air like a vanishing whisper. The creature laughed, the sound sparking urgent dread in her gut. Her companion stepped closer, determination in his eyes. We need to find a way to counter whatever power it thinks you have. You can't face this alone. Then help me, she pleaded, her voice cracking under the pressure of the situation. We have to confront this. It's not just hunting me. It's threatening everyone. The shadows thickened around them, and the air crackled with a manic energy as whispers filled the void, unintelligible voices scrabbling at the back of her mind. Finish what you started or face the darkness within, echoed again and again. Rebecca, he shouted, breaking her concentration. Focus. A surge of fear mixed with a flicker of clarity ignited within her. Okay, I need to channel this energy. Maybe I can trap it. Her companion's expression shifted, a mix of incredulity and hope. You think you can do that? I have to try, she rasped, heart racing, hands shaking. The locket pulsed, brightening her vision, commanding her attention. As shadows closed in, an electric current of possibility shimmered between them. She could either succumb to the darkness or confront it with everything she had. Are you ready? She asked, steeling herself for the uncertainty that lay ahead. No, he replied, his resolve unwavering. But we have to face it together. The moment hung heavy in the air, the shadows swaying as if in anticipation, dizzying Rebecca's mind. They were on the cusp of something monumental. What if they failed? What if they faced a horror beyond imagination? But just then, the locket flared brilliantly, illuminating the darkness. A whisper of promise floated through her mind, as if beckoning her to trust it. Finish what you started, it murmured almost sweetly, and then it all went dark. A shiver ran down her spine, and the air thickened with dread. Would they awaken in a new reality? Or had they stepped directly into the clutches of their worst fears? The darkness pulled away like a heavy curtain lifting, revealing a scene Rebecca could barely comprehend. The locket pulsed with a warm glow in her palm, the promise of her past flickering within it, alongside an inexplicable urge to reclaim it, her power, her identity. There they stood, surrounded not by shadows but an apparition of the past, a playground filled with laughter, vibrant colors radiating joy where sorrow once reigned. Children danced freely, faces alive with innocence. Each laugh carried a ghostly echo, mixed with Rebecca's memories, stinging with a terrible sweetness. Where are we? She breathed, feeling the familiar ache in her chest. A pit formed in her stomach as she caught a glimpse of the little girl from the locket. Her dark, wide eyes staring back, full of fears yet to be faced. This is your past, her companion whispered, standing at a distance, respect etched into his voice. It's time to embrace it. Suddenly a cold shiver snaked through the air, dark smoke swirling into the playground like a storm cloud, shadows shifting into monstrous figures. The laughter warped under the pressure, morphing into despairing cries. Rebecca felt roots of fear trying to anchor her down, but the locket burned in response, a portal to the truth hidden in her own soul. Finish what you started, it whispered again, resonating deep within her. Rebecca stepped forward, anchoring herself to the park's memories. No, she called back to the darkness, her defiance rising like fire. You don't control me. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently, thrashing against the remnants of light. Embrace your power. Embrace the darkness. They hissed, morphing into the very figures she had fled. But instead of fear, she tasted rage. Each pulse from the locket igniting flickers of long-buried resolve. Those voices. She cried out, memories crashing against her consciousness. They are not my truth. They will not dictate who I become. With an explosion of light and bravery, she faced the swirling darkness, the child within her peering through the haze with wide-eyed wonder. I will protect my past, she yelled, raising the locket high above her, its warm radiance pulsating fiercely. Then show us. The darkness rumbled, and Rebecca felt the ground shift beneath her. The figures coiled closer, laughter morphing into an ominous chorus. Yet, she drew strength from all the joy, laughter, and love that shaped her as a child. Memories flared, illuminating the beauty of those connections they threatened to extinguish. Enough, she screamed, channeling every fear and pain into the locket as it glowed brighter, fusing light and shadow. In a brilliant burst, rays of light spiraled from her, crashing against the darkness with an incandescent wave that swallowed it whole. For an instant everything slowed. Rebecca felt a connection swell, a shimmering thread linking her scattered pieces back together. The laughter of children rose around her, a symphony of hope echoing against the malevolent whispers. You cannot take this from me, she shouted once more, heart thrumming in defiance. No, the shadows shrieked, dissipating helplessly against the flood of light. As their cries faded, the playground transformed, the colors grew vibrant, laughter ringing real and bright. The darkness melted into nothing, and she turned to see her companion's eyes wide with astonishment. We did it, he breathed, awe painted across his face. But Rebecca shook her head, a bittersweet smile creeping onto her lips. No, I did it. A piece of my past guided me, but it was my choice to stand my ground. The scene around her shimmered, fading back to the present, but she felt whole, a phantom weight lifted like fog dispersing under the sun. And as the last vestiges of the playground vanished, the locket still pulsed warmly in her palm, a reminder of the strength she'd fought to reclaim. But there's more to do, she murmured. I know where we need to go next, the drenched man said, his voice steady. We can't stop now. There's still a darkness seeking to claim others. With renewed determination they stepped back into the dim light of reality, ready to face the paths ahead. As they moved forward, shadows that once seemed daunting curled away, leaving room for the first glimmers of dawn's promise, and Rebecca smiled, knowing at last, she was the master of her own fate. Now, if you enjoyed this wild ride, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. About this ending, let's hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's how we build this amazing community together.